Kyle Kuzma. It was like the minute he signed that contract, it was the foregone conclusion he was going to be on the block forevermore. So today, I wanted to talk about Marc Stein put out a report that there's rise to believe that the Wizards are going to find a trade at some point for Kyle Kuzma in the next 6 weeks. They're 4-22. They're tanking. He's 29 years old, and I would say his peak value was last year when he was almost traded to the Wizards. And he even suggests that the Mavs could make a run at him. I personally don't think the Mavs would be the team to make a run at him anymore. I think they're cool. If they did anything, they'd be a small one. But before we continue today's video, hit that like and subscribe button. This is a report from Marc Stein of the Stein line. Link in the description, or should be. If not, go Google it. It's there. I work as a multimedia journalist for Hoops. I'm right now traveling to my folks' house from Orlando after going to the G League Showcase. So just talking about Kyle Kuzma, I really think the two teams that it makes the most sense. First off, the Sacramento Kings, we know they had interest last year, and obviously at Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles with a pick package for a guy like Kyle Kuzma, and I guess throw in Patrick Baldwin to replace Lyles' minute, or an Anthony Gill, but I think they really value Anthony Gill, but Wizards, so I think it'll just be Baldwin because we know they're trying to move him. And the Wizards get a pick from the Kings. Kings get a starting power forward, and that allows DeMar to play, I guess, guard, and Kyle Kuzma to play forward if you wanted. If not, if you can keep the power forward position for Kyle Kuzma, have him next to Sabonis, and then have DeMar stay at the wing, and you put yourself with De'Aaron Fox, either Malik Monk or Keon Ellis at the shooting guard position. Again, I just really don't think it addresses the overhead need for a team like that, but I could see the Kings being desperate and thinking that it's going to do something better than it really would. Now, the other trade I think that could be a sneaky trade, Julius Randle just doesn't fit the Timberwolves. I really just don't think it's worked out. And in this other trade, as we said, they send out a guy by the name of Julius Randle. I think it makes the most sense if you see this trade and you're thinking Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin, which is $25.9 million for Julius Randle and Joe Ingles, which is $35 million, and 4 second-round picks. Yeah, it's not as good as the first-round pick you could get for the Kings if this were the two options they're choosing from, as it's not as good of a future draft asset. I think the Timberwolves would want to do this because Kyle Kuzma fits better for what they're needing, and Pat Baldwin could potentially be a reclamation project that Chris Finch could make work, as he did with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, as he fits that. Kuzma and Pat Baldwin fit better next to Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. While as Chris Finch, the Wolves run a flexible offense, emphasizing perimeter play and spacing, and Kuzma's ability to stretch the floor and push the pace and playing transition complements that philosophy and would allow Rudy Gobert to not have to run up the court. He just would be better than Julius Randle's dribble, ball hog. So I think having a guy like that would be huge, in my opinion. Now, on the other side, before we go into the Mike Brown aspect of it, I think, Mike Brown would be a guy who would I think both Chris Finch and Mike Brown could make up for Kyle Kuzma's defensive liabilities, as well as if you look at his tape when he played under Mr. Frank Vogel and assistant coach Jason Kidd, he was a better defender with the Lakers. So I think having Mike Brown, who has a structured defense, a rotation with his team, and just scheme, see Keon Ellis out there with the reliance of on-off ball movement, I think that would challenge, and I think Kuzma will respond to the elevated defensive focus. And then on the offensive side, he really would fluctuate as the third option next to DeMar. He would also help space the floor next to DeMar, Sabonis, and Fox, which would likely benefit the half-court sets Mike Brown would run and allow for more exploitive mismatches. As I said, Chris Finch would have an offense that would fit Kuzma's play style better, emphasizing on transition and just playing in the perimeter, especially with Anthony Edwards. And I think Chris Finch, having Rudy Gobert, would make up for those defensive liabilities, in my opinion. as Kyle Kuzma, I think, just would address a lot for this team. The other thing is I know like Kuzma is not the efficient player he has been in the past. Because I know people are going to be like, well, look at his stats this past season. He's averaging 15.8 points, 5.6 rebounds. He's down after being a back-to-back 20 points per score. I think the defensive pressure, obviously, is something that's gotten to him. But I think either of these trades would allow him, A, to be more efficient. I think his stats would stay the same. I think he's giving you 15 points a night. And which is the better trade for the Wizards? I think the Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and the 2031 first-round pick with the rights to swap with San Antonio. This trade, I think, would help their offensive versatility, gives them a reliable secondary scorer with size to play both combo forward positions, floor spacing, and, they replace Lyles with Pat Baldwin. I think really Mike Brown being a coach who's good at coaching defense, good at coaching ball movement, and he's going to help with the defensive lapses that Kuzma has. He's going to improve Mike Brown is going to use Kuzma to improve their spacing and their off-ball movement with DeMar DeRozan. While I think the best fit for Kuzma to make the most sense, because Julius Randle's clearly not working for the Timberwolves, and Joe Ingles is just old as hell. Julius Randle and Joe Ingles, the 4 second-round picks. You finally get off Pat Baldwin. Both trades, you get rid of Pat Baldwin, but I think the ability to have a guy like Chris Finch who's going to properly have a system that, A, with Rudy Gobert, hides Kuzma's defensive liabilities, but then also with Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker off the bench, you can run Naz and Kuz with either Rob Dillingham or really keep in Anthony Edwards and go with Mike Conley or Dillingham and have a lineup that really pushes the pace and forces teams to kind of play like their own version of the death ball. I think that could be something that obviously have Jaden McDaniels probably out there if he did that, and have maybe Edwards be the point guard, Jaden McDaniels, Kuz, Reed, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker just space the floor. I think that would be the best trade. And you finally move off of Randle. Randle could be a reclamation project for the Wizards, or a guy you flip down the road. And Joe Ingles, the guy you just cut. You just cut him, and then you just use that roster space to get somebody. I think assets-wise, it's more likely the Timberwolves to do something like that and give up the 4 second-round picks, because that's the only thing they can trade, than it would be the Kings being that desperate to trade a first-round pick like that down the road when things could really go bad if they don't figure it out. So I would try to see if the Timberwolves are interested in doing something like that. It's definitely interesting to see how it all play out, because time is ticking over the next 6 weeks. So that's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts, if you guys agree with me or not. But that'll be it for me. Peace out.